The doctors had already stopped making promises. The therapists still showed up, but their optimism had faded. Even the newspapers that once praised her as one of the youngest CEOs in Chicago had moved on to newer names, newer headlines, newer success stories. Then, on a cold October evening, a janitor pushing a cleaning cart through a nearly empty office building looked at the woman in the wheelchair and said something no one else had dared to say. He told her he would help her walk again. She laughed. 3 years later, she cried. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories about compassion, forgiveness, and second chances. This story began in downtown Chicago, where Victoria Hayes had built one of the fastest-growing technology companies in America. At just 38 years old, she seemed to have everything people dream about: success, recognition, wealth, and influence. Her company filled an entire glass tower overlooking the city. Her employees admired her discipline. Investors trusted her instincts. Everywhere she went, people saw a woman with an unstoppable future. And for a while, it truly seemed limitless. Then one snowy evening, everything changed. A devastating car accident left Victoria with a severe spinal injury. She survived, but her legs no longer responded the way they once had. What followed was a long, exhausting battle of surgeries, treatments, specialist visits, and rehabilitation programs. There was progress, but not enough. Months turned into years, and eventually, Victoria became dependent on a wheelchair. The physical pain was difficult. The emotional pain was worse. She stopped attending company events. She avoided public appearances. The woman who had once inspired entire rooms slowly began withdrawing from the world. Though she still held the title of CEO, she often stayed late after everyone else had gone home, sitting alone in her office and staring at the city lights, wondering if the best part of her life was already behind her. One evening, while working late, she noticed a janitor cleaning the executive floor. His name was Michael Carter. Michael was a single father raising his 12-year-old son, Caleb. He worked nights in the office building after spending his mornings helping his son with school and taking care of everything waiting for him at home. Life had never given Michael many breaks, but he carried himself with a quiet strength that people noticed almost immediately. At first, he simply greeted Victoria with kindness. But what stood out most was this: he never looked at her with pity. He treated her the same way he treated everyone else. That alone made him different. One night, after noticing her struggle while transferring from her wheelchair, Michael gently shared something unexpected. Years earlier, his wife had suffered from a serious illness that affected her mobility. During that season of his life, he had spent countless hours learning about physical rehabilitation, recovery techniques, strengthening exercises, and the emotional side of healing. His wife eventually passed away, but before she did, she taught him something he never forgot. Hope often disappears long before possibility does. When Michael told Victoria he believed she could improve far beyond what she had been told, she nearly laughed out loud. She had spent millions consulting world-class doctors and specialists. What could a janitor possibly know that they didn't? And yet, there was something about him she couldn't dismiss. He wasn't offering shallow inspiration. He wasn't pretending recovery would be easy. He simply believed, with a kind of calm certainty, that her story wasn't over. Over the months that followed, Michael kept encouraging her. He brought her articles he had saved. He shared stories of people who had made unexpected progress after years of disappointment. But more than anything, he kept reminding her that healing isn't only physical. Sometimes the mind gives up before the body does. Little by little, something began to change. Victoria returned to therapy with a renewed sense of commitment. She stopped measuring success only by whether she could walk again and started noticing the victories she once ignored: a stronger transfer, steadier balance, a longer standing session, one more attempt when she wanted to quit. The journey was painfully slow. There were setbacks. There were humiliating days. There were moments when she felt foolish for hoping again. But Michael never let discouragement have the final word. Even after finishing long night shifts, even when he went home exhausted, he still found time to send simple messages reminding her how far she had already come. And as Victoria's determination grew, she began to notice Michael's own struggles more clearly. His son Caleb dreamed of attending a prestigious science academy. He had the talent, the discipline, and the ambition, but the tuition was far beyond what Michael could afford on a janitor's salary. Michael never complained. He never asked for sympathy. He just kept working. The friendship that grew between them changed both of their lives. Victoria learned humility, patience, and resilience from a man the world had taught itself to overlook. Michael, in turn, gained confidence watching someone fight her way back from the edge of despair. Then came the morning no one expected. During a rehabilitation session, nearly 3 years after that first conversation, Victoria took several supported steps. They were small, they were slow, but they were real. The therapist stood in stunned silence. Weeks later, those steps became steadier. Months later, she crossed a therapy room using assistive support. What once seemed impossible had become undeniable. Then came the day that everyone would remember. At her company's annual leadership conference, thousands of employees gathered, expecting a speech. Instead, they watched in complete silence as Victoria slowly rose from her chair and walked onto the stage. The room was overwhelmed with emotion. Many people cried, but no one cried harder than Michael. Standing backstage, the janitor who had refused to let hope die watched the impossible unfold in front of him. A few days later, Victoria called a special company meeting. In front of employees, investors, and senior executives, she told them the story of the man who had helped change her life. She explained that while doctors had treated her body, Michael had helped restore her spirit. Then she made an announcement no one saw coming. Michael Carter would become the company's new director of community outreach, leading programs focused on resilience, mentorship, and family support. But she didn't stop there. Victoria also established a full scholarship fund that would guarantee Caleb's education through college. The room erupted in applause. For the first time in years, Michael could no longer hold back his tears. Before we reach the end of the story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever met someone whose kindness changed your life when you needed it most? Leave a comment below and share your story with our community. Your experience may become the encouragement someone else needs today. Years later, visitors entering the company's headquarters noticed a framed photograph hanging near the lobby. In it, a CEO was taking her first supported steps. Beside her stood a janitor with tears in his eyes. Below the image was a simple message: hope is most powerful when it comes from someone who owes you nothing. That was the lesson Victoria never forgot. Success had given her influence. Money had given her options. But one ordinary man's compassion gave her something far more valuable: the courage to believe again. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with friends and family, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the reason someone keeps moving forward. And sometimes the person who changes your life is the one the world almost overlooks. Because hope doesn't always arrive wearing a suit. Sometimes it arrives pushing a janitor's cart.